My computer is slow as molasses today. All right, so I'm going to put this link up in the Blackboard just so you can have it in case you want to read through this information and the other things that I'm going to show you in a few minutes. So, if you looked up typography's definition, like the definition of typography on the internet, it would take you. One of the links would be this Wikipedia page. Warnings about Wikipedia because people like yourself and myself can go here and add and take away from any of these pages. Never take this information as canon. It is not. Some of the information that is on Wikipedia pages is very accurate. It's very, very accurate. But there's a lot of stuff that's on the Wikipedia pages that could be made up by other people, besides the author who originally put the page up. So understand that and know that that possibility is there. So just because you read it on Wikipedia doesn't mean that it's always facts. You want to always fact check and go and look in other locations for it. But this is a good explanation of typography. Uh, Typography, just reading the first sentence here, the art and technique of arranging type to make written language legible, readable, and appealing when displayed. So you're just trying to make things look good. It's making text look good and making people want to read and consume the information. Um, Given a small history, and I'm trying to restrain myself because typography, uh, well, growing up in college, typography is a whole entire class where there's a lot of history and information crammed into your brain that you have to regurgitate and recall at all times. And it becomes one of those things where you got to share it with other people so you don't go crazy. And I'm trying to restrain myself because I only got a little bit of time, and I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole with this because when you go into the vector design class, you go into the InDesign class, which is the page layout class, you're going to be talking about typography again and again and again because it's going to be emphasized and you're going to get different opinions and thought processes and information. So I'm trying to hold myself back slightly. So, history for a minute, hieroglyphics, cuneiform, um, cave drawings. All these things were ways to communicate with people in different ways. Most of the times, with those that I just mentioned, it was pictures. It was like a pictograph type of thing. You had some type of shapes, and the combination of shapes represented a particular thing. And that was cool. Problem was, everybody couldn't read it. Um, so those who became the royalty, the rich, the clergy, they were able to have the education to be able to read this, so they were able to hold on to a lot of knowledge within just themselves. The common people could not read and pick out things. Then came, as you fast forward through the years, you got that old English style writing from like medieval times, real flurry and fancy looking lettering. This is when the lettering started to become simplified, where it went from the hieroglyphic style type of writing to actual letter shapes, where that we kind of know now. The different letters, the Arabic based letters, and things like that that we are familiar with in our English language. And yes, English is a very weird thing if you start getting into etymology and language and this typography world and stuff like that. Um, our English language pulled things from a lot of different places to create what it is now. All right, so Old English was simpler writing than the hieroglyphics, but it was still kind of fancy. So the general population did not understand Old English that well. Then you had people from all over the place. One famous name is the word Gutenberg. That is a person who created the printing press. One of the people who invented and created the printing press. There were again a bunch of people did this all at the same time at different points, and they added on to the process to create what is now the old time printing press, where you had typed letters that you set in a line, and once you put those letters in place, you would put ink over top of them. If you look at this, if you see my cursor here, this picture right here is kind of an example of what they used to do. Place these things in place, and then put ink on them, put paper on top, and put a press down to press the ink into the paper. And you had the printing press. In order to use that printing press efficiently, they had to simplify the letters. So they had to simplify the letters even more from being real fancy and connected to each other to being separate. Starts to get you letters that we recognize today being separated, like this Trajan, example that's right here. These different typefaces, which are the different, the way the text looks is a typeface. These different typefaces that are out here that we end up getting made it easier for the common people to read. And so more and more people were being educated and to the point where we are now. And that's how kind of typography came into place because then people that somebody didn't want to use Trajan anymore. We want to use something that looks a little bit different, so we create something different in the look and call it something else, and then that font becomes what it is, and then somebody creates another thing, and then I want to create a sign, and I want the sign to be able to be read from a distance, so I want to have a different looking letter that may be thicker and bolder looking so they can see it from a distance for further away from a distance and easier to read versus now I'm making a book or a magazine and I want the text to be easy to read, but I want people to have to concentrate to read that thing. So it makes them interested in reading. So you have different types of fonts and different classifications of those different fonts. And by the way, font, typeface, they're interchangeable words in our modern times. But a typeface is the way the letters look, and the font is actually a shortened version of called a font family. A font family is a group of the same looking letter types. So, like for instance, Arial is the name of a font family because you have Arial narrow, you have Arial rounded, you have Arial bold, you have Arial regular, medium, italic. There's a bunch of different family members within that particular font family. So each family member could be called a typeface. Most times you call it a style. The bold and italic and all that, you call them styles. And I'm kind of giving you a small primer of this stuff because it does show up later on when we get into Photoshop and the rest, where this becomes, important, or a little more important because you'll be actually practical use of it. So again, this website here just goes over typography, and I'm trying to shorten my speech up by catching myself. I'm going to show you this. This is not. I'm not going to play this video because again, time. But I want to give you this video here. It comes from YouTube. This Learn Free. I mentioned this before, but this is this is a company, a page. This is a page to subscribe to because they have an entire series from Learn Free that talks about all kinds of design things. So they curated and put together a playlist, and that's typography is one of them out of that list that covers a lot of graphic design uh concepts, typography, color, shape, pixel, vector, all kinds of different things. So take a look at that whenever you get a chance to. So I'm gonna give you this video. There'll be a couple of other videos on the side of the playlist there that you can take a look at covering typography. Here's another video that I'll give you too. That's in that grouping, that playlist grouping. If anybody needs that playlist, send me an email, let me know, and I'll try to send it to you. The link for it, the main level of it, and then you can go through all the things. But this is going to be kind of a history about fonts, and it's probably the most entertaining version that I've seen that keeps you from reading a textbook on typography with this particular guy. So I'll send you that link as well. Now, going to find fonts and trying to, dive deeper into just the letters that you got on your computer currently and want to go get more. The first thing that I would tell you to go to is here. This is Adobe Fonts. The website is fonts.adobe.com. Just trying to get back to the front page. Oh, this is now the front page. Cool. They change things all the time. So this is Adobe's repository of all their fonts. Adobe as a company, this is going way back, started probably in the 60s, 70s, probably the 70s. Um, Around that time, printing became digital. So when computers started becoming the norm, um, they started to computerize the printing process. So they would allow, you would take a file so they would take something that you would create. It would be a digital file, off the computer. That file format had to be created in a particular way, sent off to the printer. The printer would then run it through their computer, and their computer would run the printing presses to print out that thing. Now, the problem that came about way back then was standardizing, making a standard format. So Adobe and a bunch of other companies were around. Adobe, they were what is called a type foundry. They created text. So all these different fonts that you know by name, Adobe owned them at one point in time, or they owned the license in which to use them because another part of their business, if they didn't make in-house the particular letters, they, went out and found people who did make these different letters and either got the licensing from them, which allowed them to sell that, that font as one of theirs, or they just bought the person completely out or the company completely out. So Adobe's been doing that. If we can't beat you, we're going to buy you. They've been doing that for a long time, and they still kind of do that with software now. So they have a lot of fonts available for you to get. And if you have that Adobe Creative Cloud account, these are free for you to use. So this would be the first place that I would tell you to go to. Going back to the story of the printing with the computers, as the years went forward, Adobe and a bunch of other companies got together within the printing industry and like, let's make a standard, which is called PostScript printing. Now, the whole idea of the PostScript printing idea, A, was a money maker for companies like Adobe, but B, it was to create a standard that, when I'm making a computer that's going to work with a printing press, I got to make it this particular way. When I make a printing press that's going to work with a computer, it's going to work this particular way. When I'm creating a software package that allows me to create graphic design elements, I need to make sure that it is compatible with these systems, meaning that I got to create the right file format. I got to make sure I send in the right file format so that way the computer can understand it and not throw the job away and be able to run the job and make it happen. So that included making standards in measurement, making standards in file formats, like the type of file that you would save, TIFF file if it's pixel, EPS if it's vector. When it comes to the font itself, the letters that you're using, they created PostScript fonts. Only can use within that system, couldn't be used anywhere else on any other type of computer. So what started happening is going through the years, people like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, when they started making their computers at IBM and with Apple and that sort of thing, they decided at some point in time, hey, we don't want to pay these licensing fees that Adobe and other companies are charging us for using their letters in our software. So we're going to make our own. So they created their own type from the PostScript system. They created what is called the TrueType system of fonts. And TrueType fonts are the ones you can find online for free nowadays. They work great on screen, on a computer, through that system. But if you tried to send it to the printing press to get printed, those letters would look like garbage. It would look all terrible. It wouldn't look like anything that it shows on the screen. Because back then, remember the talk we had about resolution? Back then, resolution on a screen was probably about 36 to 72 pixel per inch at the max. Resolution for printing had to be at least 150, and there was no way to translate back and forth. So anything that you had on screen with those true type fonts would look like nothing. It would look terrible when you try to print it out in a PostScript font system, if it would even go through, because sometimes the jobs would be not would be kicked back. So fast forward again, Adobe, a couple other companies decided, hey, all these fonts that we got half of them we can't use because they're true type, and the other half we can use because they're PostScript. But this whole PostScript system is starting to go away because nobody's really printing anymore. You'll notice that magazines, newspapers, and all that, they have a digital form that most people are consuming now through their phones and tablets. So the demand to print things is not as high as it used to be. So we got to make a change. So the change they decided to do is create, when it comes to text, is to create what is called open type fonts. That is what we have right now at this fonts.adobe.com site. Um, all of these font families that are here, I'm trying to click on one of these while I'm talking, the font is created in a way that if you're using it on screen, it's going to be a true type based font, which means it's going to look as good on screen as it can. If you decide to print your products out and run it through a PostScript system or run it through the new printing system, it would print out just the same way you would see it on screen because it would change its properties over to PostScript if necessary to send the information through so it prints out like you're seeing it on screen. That is a great and innovative thing. It is new though. It has not been out. I want to say 15 years, could be shorter than that, could be a little bit longer than that. But open type fonts has been around, has been around for a little bit, but it's still kind of new in comparison to everything else. Now, why am I saying all this to you? Because when it comes to going into Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, any other graphic design program anywhere, no matter who makes it, you're going to see a distinction between the different lettering. Besides just the way it looks, most programs are going to show you a TT for true type fonts, a letter a PS or a printer looking icon that represent a PostScript font. And if it's an open type font, either it's going to be a letter O or it's going to be a cloud looking shape, it looks like a cloud that indicates that it's an open type font. Now, you want to use more open type fonts in your projects nowadays to make sure it's kind of future proof. So that way you can, use that font again later on and use that font again later on in your life and your career. And it's going to print out and it's going to show up on screen like it needs to. Any of the true type fonts or PostScript fonts that you have. PostScript fonts, number one, I think Adobe has now made a mandate that they're gone. They're disappeared. You can't even use them anymore. You can't even install them on your operating system sometimes. Whereas the true type fonts you can still use because they're just out there in the wild to be, that they can be used anywhere. Now, when it comes to this website, when you go and find a font, and I'll show you a couple of different ways to kind of look for these things. When you find a font that you want to install, there's usually going to be a button that'll let you choose Add Family. That's all the way up here at the top, or you'll see an Add Font next to the individual, fonts in the family. Um, it's up to you, but when you decide to add those fonts, it'll add them to your Creative Cloud account. Once it's in your Creative Cloud account, when you get into your program, it'll be installed into your program. Most of the times, it's almost instant. So if you have a program like Photoshop, I got it open, and I decide to add this particular font family here, default Gothic. I ain't doing it, but if I decide to add this, right within my project. As soon as I hit add family and it's done, when I come back to my project, it should be ready to be used. And if it's not ready to be used, usually it requires you to restart your computer. Well, not your computer, restart the file or restart the program. Because, like, for instance, I think it's Illustrator where you have to restart the program or restart the file. No, restart the file in Illustrator. Photoshop, restart the file. InDesign, most of the time it's going to be instant. And they keep updating things where it becomes a little more instant, where it's just immediately available, a little bit faster for you, so you don't have to restart things. Now, if you're trying to figure out which font works the best for whatever your project is, here's a couple of ways that you can go and look for things. Number one, there's recommendations all the time. That's up there at the top. It's just a simple link, and it will take you to a place where you can kind of be inspired by either trends or what's currently happening or anything like that. So you'll have that available to take a look at and look through and see different, you know, fonts being used in little mini projects and see if there's something that you like. All right, there's that. There's also this thing called a font pack, which are groups of fonts that are groups that are grouped together. And you see the font packs based on again a trend or a design aspect or aesthetic, and kind of see what they are. You can view the whole entire font pack. I'm clicking on view pack here, and you can get more information. Sometimes the font pack is basically a whole set of fonts made by one particular type foundry or one particular designer. So you'll see that, or like in this case, this was curated by this guy named Dan. So you'll get more information about Dan a little further down, but you can see all the different fonts that he put together. And sometimes they'll have a button, yeah, where you can add the entire font pack in all at once with one click. So that's always cool. Or you can go to the individual ones and add them in individually one at a time. You're always going to be able to kind of change the font size to make it bigger or smaller. And then a lot of times they'll give you like a place to type in uh, your name or whatever word that you want to say to kind of compare and see how it looks. You know, that is a weird one. Some of the fonts are going to be very weird. Some of them are going to be very clean and easy, and some of them are going to be real stylistic. And you just got to figure out when and where you want to use them at. Matter of fact, I'm going to stay here for a second because there's another thing I want to talk about, and I'll come back to it later.